remembered. So we have our American friends reminding us to record. Okay, so let's sit upright and dignified. And everything here is meaningful in the practice, including the posture. So the posture itself reminds us of, helps to remind us of something connected with our Buddha nature. Since we all have this capacity to wake up completely and be a fully awakened being, we start with accessing, recognizing our basic goodness, our basic dignity and stability. We have that capacity, even though right now we might be very restless, confused, even upset, or whatever we are. But according to the experience of countless practitioners since the time of Lord Buddha, we do have Buddha nature, which is another way of saying we have basic warmth, basic insight and wisdom, basic spaciousness, and basic balance, stability. That's there. So this posture helps us remember that. Front of the body is open because in the Mahayana, or great vehicle, the whole purpose is to wake up so that we can help others wake up, help others to attain their human potential, which is to fully awaken. And on the way, we, of course, aspire to benefit others in whatever ways they need help. So the posture itself is reminding us of innate dignity and stability with the uprightness and the openness of the posture, the responsibility really we have of working with and benefiting others, not based on some kind of fluffy or romantic notion of things, but the fact that without other people, we would not be here and we could not survive. We totally depend on others. However much we may think or feel that we are self-made people, that's very much only part of the story. We depend on the kindness of others, totally. So that's important to remember. If you're not comfortable, you can use a chair, okay? It's no problem, chairs. Naveenji, sorry, before you get totally settled, would you mind just turning this down? Sorry. Thanks very much. Thank you. Of course, it might make a clunking sound, but that's okay. Thank you. Okay, so please, having slowed down and paying attention to the posture, let's just rest in the present moment, wherever you are, and feel the sensation of your body on the chair or on a cushion, just that basic sensation which can bring us into the present moment, so that we let go of the past, which is dead actually. In one way, it's like a complete hallucination, and the future, well, who knows what's going to happen. So it's pointless worrying about it or jumping too far ahead. So let's just be in the present moment, recognizing that we are here with other beings who want to be happy and don't want to suffer. That's the bottom line. And so to help us with our motivation, think of the people you know and care for, or it could be also people you don't know, but having heard about them or seen their pictures or whatever, you do feel that stirring within that you care for those people for whatever reason. They may be in a state of misery or poverty, surviving, trying to survive some disaster or war, or the effects of climate catastrophe, whatever it is, or just people you know well who are sick or ill or lonely or dying and so forth. Just remember how each and every one of those beings, just like us, do not wish for any kind of sorrow or misery. And yet they're having to experience it all the time in one way or another. And they're lacking any kind of final satisfaction or contentment. Even those who may be very well off or have no material problems at all, they are unsatisfied, constantly searching for what might make them happy. So remember such beings and generate a sense of warmth and genuine, heartfelt wish for them to be free of the chains of their misery, their dissatisfaction. What the great American author Thoreau called their quiet desperation. And if you find it difficult to arouse much compassion or feeling for adults, then think of all the children, uh, apparently about 4 million children displaced and suffering due to, for example, the current conflict in the Ukraine. 4 million children, that's a lot of children. And of course, not to mention their mothers, fathers, and so forth. Displaced, many living in camps, and with winter approaching in a Europe that is going to have problems with power supplies due to the war. And this is not to mention the tens of millions on the verge of starvation in the Horn of Africa, and so on and so forth. And this is just the human beings. Countless beings are suffering in what the Buddha called cyclic existence, samsara. So by engaging in this session together, may we begin to understand better the process we are in, and also the fact that due to training, mind training, based on authentic literature from authentic practitioners, we may gain a great deal of insight and inspiration so that we may generate some very powerful positive energy, insight, and qualities that will enable us to not only benefit ourselves, but more importantly, also benefit others. to start with, we engage in a stabilizing practice, recognizing that the mind is like a wild elephant or mad elephant or restless monkey jumping all over the place, totally distracted. So we engage in the breath awareness practice. I think we're all familiar with that pretty much. If we're not, then the practice is to be aware of the sensation of breath as we breathe in and out. Sensation can be noticed, can be felt in several places. We choose either the tip of the nostrils or the rising and falling of our abdomen as we breathe in and out. So sometimes the nostrils, that's a bit hard to pick up that sensation. So in that case, you can choose the abdomen as you breathe in and out normally. We breathe normally and we're aware of the sensation. And we're also aware when the mind goes off somewhere in the past or the future, thinking, creating visions and images and so forth. And we let go of that process. We don't get caught up in it. And we come back to the breath. But all of this is done in a very relaxed but alert fashion, okay? We keep the body still, it helps. But let mind and body be relaxed, not tense. But although we find it useful and skillful to be relaxed, that doesn't mean that we become sloppy or sleepy. So we maintain a mind which is alert and awake. So we'll practice for 7-8 minutes together. If you're a complete beginner, you can stop after 3 or 4 minutes for a little while and then start again. But do try to maintain the continuity of attention. And when the mind drifts off, notice and come back. Let there be a sense of relaxing and letting go, especially with the out breath. Breathing out gives us scope for a sense of relief, if you like a sigh of relief. Just imagining any distorted, restless energy is leaving the body with the out breath. So again, welcome to everybody who joined recently, including a friend from Turkey. So earlier this evening, I overheard somebody saying how, we spend a lot of our lives complaining, but finally, we've come to the point where we realize how important gratitude is. So we can all stop a moment to not only feel gratitude for this human life we have, which is one of the basic meditations in the stages of the path practice, to recognize the amazing opportunities we have with this human life, but also we can feel gratitude for everybody here online and everybody here at Tushita. We have six of us all together at Tushita, and however many online, 10 of you online. So again, the onliners outnumber the real people. Anyway, so maybe there is a scope for robotics. I'm just joking. But let's hope one day, if there are robots practicing meditation, it benefits them, and others. Okay, so real gratitude, because you see, without each one of you, each one of us is what is the word? Is a part of this session, right? Without each one of us, the session doesn't happen. So you can feel gratitude for everyone. The people in Dehradun, Pune, Delhi, Noida, Arunachal, Turkey. It's amazing. Gurgaon, and the people here at Tushita in this very closeted, beautiful part of Horse Khas in South Delhi. So all of us, you see, helping each other by being here. So that's something proving the reality of interdependence. Okay, so we've been looking at this extraordinary text of Shantideva's, which His Holiness the Dalai Lama has praised as the text due to which he has generated any compassion that he may have. That's how His Holiness put it, that if he has any compassion whatsoever, it's on the basis of this text that I have developed it. And His Holiness received teachings on this text at Bodh Gaya, especially at the main temple, from a very great Bodhisattva from Kinnaur district of Himachal Pradesh, Kunu Lama Rinpoche. He received teachings from that great being. And one of our members, Ajirji, whom a lot of you know, he's from the same village as that great Lama who taught His Holiness, a village in Kinnaur district, which is the one district bordering Tibet. Okay, so yes, last time I wasn't using the commentary of Pema Chodron's, the Becoming Bodhisattva, her commentary on Shantideva's text. That, of course, has very good things in it. And those of you who can have access to that text at some point, it's very useful. Also, of course, the traditional ones, the more traditional ones, meaning those by His Holiness Dalai Lama and other geshes, also, of course, excellent. But because Pema Chodron, I think, is very much in tune with modern people and works with modern people, and is someone who's been, married with children and so forth, her commentary also is something very useful for us, and especially maybe for lay people. So she says, in regards to, for example, verse 79 in chapter 5, which was it's translated this way in her book, in her commentary: speak with honest words, coherently, with candor, in a clear, harmonious voice, abandon partiality, rejection, and attraction, and speak with moderation, gently. This is much harder than it sounds, as some of us may know. I remember when I was more involved with the school we have in Bodh Gaya. So for younger people, very hard to speak gently, coherently, in a balanced way, powerfully. We had a theater group there, and we did acting and stuff with the children. And it took a lot of training for people to learn to speak, clearly and coherently, measured tones in a way that's understandable. And this is also the case with many of us adults. We don't know how to speak clearly and kindly and moderately and gently. Not too loud, not too soft, not too slow, not too fast, in a pleasing manner. I mean, how many people do we know who have a very pleasing manner of speaking? Of course, one man's meat is another's poison, as we say. You might be attracted to certain ways of speaking. But the point Shantideva is making is that mindful speech is important and it's not easy. So Pema Chodron says this: to speak honestly and coherently is hard enough, but to speak with moderation is an even greater challenge. Trungpa Rinpoche, who is her teacher, put great effort into having his students speak slowly, mindfully, and clearly. This was a rewarding and illuminating practice. Slowing down our speech can have a remarkably calming effect. Acha, we are on chapter 5. Can you help him get the right place? Verse 79. This was, slowing down our speech can have a remarkably calming effect. It can also make us nervous because we're so used to mindlessness and speed that slowing down can feel threatening. if we're used to driving our car on a German autobahn or some roadway, then to slow down might feel very strange and threatening even. You might feel, you feel more vulnerable. At least at speed, it's like, yeah, you're rocking, you're rolling, you're kind of, it's fine. And if you have a good road, but if you have to slow down, it can feel difficult. So Shantideva encourages us to speak gently and without bias. It can be embarrassing to see how much prejudice we convey with our words. Acknowledging biased mind before it turns into speech can spare us a lot of pain. Without justification or guilt, without praise or blame, we can recognize that we're getting caught and keep silent. Yeah. And the next verse also gives a very good commentary. This is verse 80. Batchelor translates it this way: when beholding someone with my eyes, thinking I shall fully awaken through depending upon this being, I should look at that person with love and an open heart. Pema Chodron's translation says, catching sight of others, think that it will be through them that you will come to Buddhahood. So look on them with open, loving hearts. There's a slogan up on the wall at Root Institute in Bodh Gaya in the dining hall, I remember, from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our teacher, which simply says, and I think we have it here at Tushita, regard everyone. I think regard everyone who is in front of you as a cause for your liberation. Everyone you see in any way is actually the cause for your own liberation. Bless you. Everybody we have anything to do with is a cause for our waking up. Of course, usually in life, people are a cause for three things: either indifference, we don't care, or attraction, or aversion, right? That's usually how we respond to people. We like them, we don't like them, or we are neutral and really don't care. So that is a waste, in a sense, of our interaction with others. Because Shantideva is saying that if someone is harming you, then you develop patience, and that helps you. If they are helping you, then you can develop gratitude. And whoever they are, even if you feel neutral towards them, this is a person who, you can begin to feel at least they are like you in wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. They're going to go through birth, sickness, aging, death. So how can I be just neutral towards them? One should feel for them. Anyway, what does she say? What does Pema Chodron say? She says this will become a prevalent theme in this work. Sentient beings are the cause of our enlightenment. So interesting. We think I am the cause of my enlightenment, or Buddha is the cause. Especially we think Buddha, Bodhisattva, my Lama, my teacher who's the greatest teacher in the world, they're the cause. But no, how could they alone be the cause? Of course, it's our own mind ultimately is the cause, of course, of our enlightenment. Yes, but what do we depend on? Every day of our life, we are interacting with others. So if we are seeing them in the right way, interacting with them in the right way, they become one of the main causes of our enlightenment. What does she say? When they bother us, we learn patience. When they're suffering, we learn loving kindness and compassion. So no matter what reaction they evoke, we can relate to them in a way that leads to Buddhahood. So instead of buying into aversion, we become tolerant. Instead of staying stuck in selfishness, we extend a hand to someone in distress. Instead of letting jealousy sabotage us, we train in rejoicement therapy. Rejoicement. That's not a very great word, but we know what she's saying. Rejoicement therapy. And then the next verse is very important because she gives a very good commentary on this, which is also there in the traditional text. Next verse says, always fired by the highest aspiration, laboring to implement the antidotes, you will gather virtues in the fields of qualities, of benefit, of sorrow. Meaning, endowed with wisdom and joy, always being motivated by great aspiration or being motivated by the remedial forces. If I work in the fields of excellence, benefit, and misery, great virtues will come about. Let me first read what actually Stephen Batchelor has in his notes, because that's the more traditional and also very good explanation of that. To work in the fields of excellence, benefit, and misery means to direct one's wholesome deeds towards three things. So we talk of a field like a farmer, right? In the field, you plant seeds which give you a crop. So there are three kinds of fields, which if we relate to in a certain way, will give us the crop of good qualities and Buddhahood. So what are those three fields? The field of excellence means the objects of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, okay? So towards them, we feel, a devotion and respect. Then the field of benefit, one's parents and teachers. One, works to benefit them. And then those who are suffering, the field of misery, okay? The field of misery are those who are suffering. Then Pema Chodron makes that clearer. She says, we can gather virtue in three ways. And remember what virtue means here, this old-fashioned word that I presume many of us have never even used in our life in conversation. We may have read the words and thought, what is that, but we never use the word virtue. I can guarantee, that most people who are not studying English literature, for example, and even those people in their daily life, have you heard people use the word virtue? We use it in Hindi though, don't we? Quite a lot. Do we? Is it the same as punya? Is punya virtue? Punya and pap are virtue and non-virtue, is that correct? What is punya?
You see, the virtue leads to good.
So what is punya?
Good. Good. Virtue is good.
Hey, punya kya hai? Aap bataiye. What's the translation of punya?
Merit, Kabir ji.
Merit, yes. It's like meritorious action.
Yeah.
Meritorious action. It's pretty much the same as virtue. Virtue is meritorious action. It leads to merit, leads to good, and it leads to happiness and so forth. Anyway, so we can leave that to the, who are the people who investigate words and their meanings? What are they called? Not entomologists, but etymologists. Yeah. I think entomology is insects, right? Okay, so traditionally the antidote to the delusion of anger is patience. Antidote to envy is rejoicing. Antidote to lust is recognizing the impurity of the body. So using these antidotes can interrupt the momentum of the delusions, of the klesh. Thus we gather virtue. We can gather virtue in three ways: in the fields of qualities, of benefits, and of sorrow. Qualities, the word used by was excellence in the Batchelor translation. So the field of qualities or excellence refers to wisdom figures, such as the teachers we've known or read about. Okay, here she doesn't mention Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. That would be the more traditional reading. So the field of excellence is Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, so that when we pray to the Buddhas or prostrate to them, we are gaining a certain kind of virtue or merit in that way. She mentions teachers, that's okay. Such men and women of wisdom are a field of excellence that awaken our devotion and veneration. Field of benefits refer to those who've been kind to us. Yeah, so here, this is why in the notes to the other translation, it mentions teachers and parents. Parents' kindness, even though we may have problems with our parents are kind in the very basic sense that even if they have been very unkind to us since we were born, still they were kind to give birth to us, or at least the mother gave birth to us. And like some animals didn't, eat us up when we were born or something. They kept us alive long enough for us to be alive today. So that is a kindness. And of course, teachers, kind because, especially if they're good teachers, they can help us, liberate our good qualities and educate us in the true meaning of that word, which is to bring out, lead out our good qualities so that we can flower in goodness, as Krishnamurti says. Okay, so the field of benefit refers to those who've been kind to us. The field of sorrow is obviously most beings, the people who are suffering. So by recognizing them, remembering them, reading about them, we can develop tremendous love and compassion, especially compassion, wishing them to be free of their sorrow and actually doing something about it. So you see all these three levels of beings, the field who are in the field of excellence, benefit, and sorrow or suffering, they can help us develop marvelous qualities. So this verse is very important. Always fired by the highest aspiration, laboring to implement the antidotes to the delusions, that is, you will gather virtues in the fields of qualities, of benefits, and of sorrow. So one way she says to put this into action is what she calls the 3-bite practice. Obviously, she's someone who is teaching people regularly, so she has to give people something that is easy to take home, after the retreat or the teaching she gives. Or if they're at her monastery, her nunnery, abbey, as she calls it, in Nova Scotia, in that northern region of very cold weather on the eastern side of the United States. That's where she has her nunnery. Anyway, the 3-bite practice means, like, for example, when we eat a meal or some offering, we have these very tempting offerings behind us here in Tushita today. Kalakand made at Sagar's home, and then we have Toblerone and Toblerone from the United States, brought by Nivita. So you see, the temptation is to start gorging into it like like a pig at a trough, who hasn't been fed for days. So rather than do that, we can remember this, what she's going to say. You can do this anytime you eat a meal. Before taking the first bite, just pause and think of those men and women of wisdom and mentally offer them your food. So here in Buddhism, we would remember the Buddha, and we would, if we have a teacher, we would think of our teacher, oneness with the Buddha, and we might imagine them in our heart, which is a very lovely practice. And when we eat, we are offering them food. And the food is like nectar, which is not difficult with these offerings. It's easy to visualize them as nectar, right? So we're offering it first to the Guru Buddha, or the Buddha, or those people who are very wise and have helped you in your life, for sure. Then you connect in that way with the virtue of devotion. Then, before taking the second bite, pause and offer your food to all those who've been kind to you in any way, friends, teachers, parents, whatever, doctors. Maybe you had to go to hospital, so then people there helped you, maybe helped you survive, nurses, attendants, doctors, surgeons. This nurtures the virtue of gratitude. Then the third bite of your food is offered to those who are suffering. So this can be a very painful one, actually, if we do it properly, because there are many people and animals who are hungry or starving. We know that now. Through all the devices we have, we can connect with people at the other end of the earth, and we even know about the beings at the depths of the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean. We know how those beings are also suffering through having too much acidity in the water or microplastic in their digestive systems. We know about that. So we can offer mentally to them. And of course, all the other beings we know, people we know very closely who are suffering. And by doing that, and also those who are without any comfort or friends, who are being tortured, who are dying in wars and all of that. And also, she says, those who suffer from aggression, from craving and indifference, which is pretty much all unenlightened beings are suffering in one way or another, from aggression, craving, and indifference, meaning not caring and being ignorant about things. So this simple gesture can awaken the virtue of compassion. So therefore, you see, we have what is called the yoga of food, and it can be called food being used as a means, as a yoga to attain goodness. Yoga meaning something that joins us with goodness. That's the original meaning of yoga, and the original meaning also, by the way, of the word religion. Relegare, to reunite with God, truth, whatever. So this becomes a yoga which unites us with gratitude, with devotion, and with compassion. Yeah. In this way, by relying on teachers, benefactors, and those in need, we gather the virtues of devotion, gratitude, and kindness. Amazing. Amazing. Thus, acting with faith and understanding, verse 82, you will always undertake good works, and in whatever actions you perform, you will not be calculating with your eye on others. That's interesting. 82 is translated differently by Batchelor. Endowed with wisdom and joy, I should undertake all that I intend to do. I need not depend upon anyone else in any actions that I undertake. That's a little different from being calculating. But I think, given the fact that I think this is based on the Padmakara translation, that's a very excellent translation group under the guidance of very authentic teachers. So it may be a bit more accurate here than the Batchelor translation. Although Batchelor is very readable and a very wonderful translation, but here it might be that the Padmakara translation group is a bit more accurate. What does the Padmakara say? Do you have the Padmakara? What does it say? Verse 82.
The Shambhala, that one?
Yeah, Padmakara.
Acting thus with faith and understanding, you should always undertake good works. And in whatever actions you perform, you should not be dependent on
Oh, should not be dependent.
it.
Okay, so Pema Chodron is actually using something else. Or because her last line is, you will not be calculating with your eye on others. Anyway, how does she talk about that? She says that Shantideva says, when we understand the chain reaction of karma, we will act wisely and not fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others. Competitiveness can be a pitfall for bodhisattvas, hoping to do better than others, fearing that we will do worse. Yeah. To gain happiness, we train in awakening bodhicitta for its own sake, not to be more virtuous than others. That makes a lot of sense. Of course, it could be that, we should not depend upon anyone else. This kind of feels like it's saying don't rely on others at all. But that's not really what Shantideva means. Even though ultimately we have to depend on ourselves. We can't hold other people's hands all the way to enlightenment. But I think here what she is saying makes a lot of sense. Depending on others means, always having others as a yardstick, or depending on others in the wrong way, in the sense of what do they think? Am I doing well enough, better than them? Not as, that is very harmful for us. Harmful, of course, as I'm sure some of you teachers know, for children. To be always comparing and competing, it leads to a very, I think, very detrimental kind of mindset, which gets very upset, of course, when they don't do better than others and don't get, very high marks in exams. It can be very dangerous for young people. They develop lack of self-esteem, and they can also, as happens many times in India, also commit suicide because of not fulfilling the expectations of their parents and so forth. So depending on others can mean that's for sure. But the bodhisattva also, someone who is genuinely trying to help others, we shouldn't always be comparing. Am I doing better than this other person? Have I said more prayers? Do I meditate more or better than this other person? or when we're in a meditation course and we feel restless and we open our eyes and everyone else seems to be, behaving like a Buddha, and we're the only ones who are restless. We shouldn't think like that. Because when we close our eyes, then someone else is opening their eyes and looking at us and thinking the same thing, maybe. So we shouldn't worry like that. Okay, where are we? 7:21. Been talking a lot. Let's stop now for a while. We're not in a hurry. And I'll remind you that in what's next month, you'll be getting teachings on chapter 6 and 7 from a nun, from Venerable Jamyang, from Tosamling Nunnery. Well, who teaches there and I think resides there quite a lot of the time, right? No?
A little bit.
A little bit. She's Dutch.
Yeah.
She's from Holland,
Netherlands.
Netherlands. So they are very practical people, the Dutch. They're renowned for being very practical and straightforward. So you'll get very good, solid teachings on this on chapter 6 and 7. She might get on to chapter 7, I guess. The chapter on. So these are the chapters on patience and enthusiastic effort, or sometimes just called effort, joyous effort, enthusiasm. Wonderful chapters. Wonderful chapters. Just to give you a trailer of chapter 7, Shantideva says, what is enthusiasm? What is enthusiasm? It is finding joy in what is wholesome. Joy in what is wholesome, not joy in chocolate or, joy in Netflix. This is not good. Its opposing factors are explained as laziness, attraction to what is harmful, and despising oneself out of despondency. So that is full of wonderful things, just that verse. So stay tuned with Tushita, because you'll be maybe getting that far. If you don't get that far, then at least she will talk about the patience chapter, which is an extraordinary chapter, very important. A little trailer for that. And this is for people who may have to leave in a few minutes. So Shantideva says about patience in the second verse, first verse, whatever wholesome deeds, such as venerating the Buddhas and generosity that have been amassed over 1,000 eons, will all be destroyed in one moment of anger. So one moment of anger, like a spark, which can bring your whole house full of holy literature or whatever to cinders. One spark of anger can destroy eons worth of positive energy. So therefore, patience, which is the antidote, one of the main antidotes to anger, it's very important to learn about patience. Yeah. Anyway, that's coming next month. Let's stay in the present now and see if there's any discussion that people would like to engage in. I'll just, oh, you are already allowed to unmute yourselves. Okay. So anybody would like to mention anything? Please feel free.
What is the name of the text, the Pema Chodron's text that you're referring to?
Becoming Bodhisattvas.
Okay. Right.
A guidebook for compassionate action.
Right.
Shambhala Books. It's Shambhala Publications. This is actually a South Asia edition, special price, 599 rupees. And it's 2019 edition. Yeah. Very, very useful. I mean, I like everything she does. I find her very good. Somebody has a dog who is hungry or excited. That's fine. Okay. Anybody want to say something? Say soon, because otherwise I'll start talking again. That's
Kabirji,
Haji, Pradeepji.
this verse 82 in Padmakara,
Ah,
the last line is like, Prema Chodharan saying is you shouldn't feel cheated or you shouldn't.
Hold on, verse
Which we were discussing, 82 verse.
82,
You should not be dependent on another.
yes.
Which interpretation is a bit different in Prema Chodharan's.
Yeah, she said you'll not be calculating with
So
your
I think
eye.
it is linked with,
That's the
isn't it
thing.
linked with the first line? Because the first line of this verse says, acting thus with faith and understanding.
Yes.
It's your
Yes.
own understanding and faith. So you should not, maybe that's how she connects it with that you should not think that others are right and you get cheated. Because you should have faith and understanding in your own, whatever.
Yes. That's a good point. If we are rooted in faith and proper understanding through our own listening, reflecting, meditating, then of course we will not be so calculating. But you see, so much depends on intention, as they say. And we can use spirituality to develop a very big ego, as Trungpa has pointed out in some of his amazing works. We can use spirituality, and it may look on the outside and even look on the inside to us ourselves that we are being very, virtuous and good, but actually we might just be building up our ego in a subtle way. And we might be doing it not realizing that we are constantly comparing ourselves with other people. And it's become such a habit that we don't even know we're doing it. You understand? Sometimes we may have habits we don't even realize we have because it's just automatic with us. Maybe we twitch or we keep on rubbing our nose and other people point it out and we don't even know we're doing it. But there are other mental habits, obviously, that we're engaging in that we don't even realize, or we don't think they are faults. We're so used to it. We don't think it's a fault. So, and I think given what we are social beings who are naturally, in some sense, competitive, actually. I mean, how do children learn? I guess they learn by watching other children and comparing themselves to some extent with other children. Or maybe a slightly older child or a child who is more, let's say, versatile with their hands, who are working with some bricks or some toys. So the other child learns from that, but also feels, okay, that child knows more than me. I think it can happen from a very young age, but if it becomes too overblown, then it becomes negative. But I don't think there's any harm in learning from people who know better than us and thinking that we should also do better. But when it becomes a kind of competitiveness, and which also leads to aggression and feeling bad about ourselves and feeling jealous, then it's become too much. What do you think? But if we have good faith and understanding, then there's no need to be jealous of anyone, because we're doing our best and we are beginning to contact our inner, richness, overcoming the inner poverty mentality that is talked about, poverty mentality. Not that we are poor, we may have millions in the bank, but we could still have poverty mentality, thinking we're not good enough or not as rich as the other, billionaire down the road. So like that, we could be comparing ourselves. But bodhisattvas need to be careful because we're supposed to unite our compassion with the perfection of wisdom. And the perfection of wisdom, as those of you know who have begun to study that with geshes and so forth, you know how extraordinary that is, in the sense that it's always short-circuiting this sense of I, me, mine. So that anything that the so-called bodhisattva does, motivated by I am doing this, I am helping that person, already they've disqualified themselves from being a real bodhisattva or engaging in something with real wisdom. That is not wisdom. To be thinking I am helping you by doing this and having a kind of solid sense of these things, then already we are disqualified. That's not the perfection of wisdom. Maybe good to give in that way, but it's limited. It's not the pragya paramita. It's not perfection of giving. So that requires a lot of faith and understanding to be at that level. But we start where we are, which is another wonderful book, by the way, by Pema Chodron. It's called Start Where You Are. That's very, very good book on the mind training. Where she, anyway. So, yeah, was there anything else, Pradeep ji, you wanted to mention?
No, thanks, Kabirji. No.
Thank you. Next verse, she goes into the 6 perfections. Shantideva goes into the 6 perfections, verse 83. But up to now, what we've done, anybody have anything on what we did? Where are we today? Monday, no? So anything that we did on Thursday or Sunday morning, you want to go back to? Sagar bhai, anything? Not clear? Or... Merve in Turkey, anything?
Maybe just a little contribution.
Please.
I was reading about research on compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing that this speaking in a soft and gentle voice is there, saying that what arises compassion physiologically. There are 3 things. One is a soft gaze, soft face impression, and one is a soothing touch, like between mother and kid, and even between people. And the third one, gentle vocalization. And this amazes me that it's 8th century, right? I'm not wrong. 8th century text.
Right. What was the third thing you mentioned? Something vocalization?
Gentle vocalization.
Gentle vocalization.
Voice and a gentle vocalization. So it's in the research now in this century, but it's written here in the 8th century. It's really amazing. I just want to share this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and I think sometimes I laugh when I read things that they are researching now, because it just seems so obvious. Actually, one doesn't need to be a Buddhist scholar to know certain things. Like, they bring out things in the paper. Scholars are researching that, well, of course, good night's sleep is good for you, and kindness brings more happiness. I mean, there's all sorts of things. I can't think of any specific example right now, but I think that's obvious. You don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars or millions researching this. It's obvious. But on the other hand, when it is researched and put in medical journals and so forth, psychological journals, then people take it more seriously. And then they get interested also in what the Buddhists are saying. So yeah, thank you for that. I think Shantideva was a great being. He was a bodhisattva. So he knew from experience what works, what doesn't work, And you only have to look at certain, well, in India, we have these atrocious, terrible so-called interviews on television, especially on news programs, where basically people are shouting at each other. And then when you see something like that, you understand how it can lead to hatred of the other person and their party, and increased blood pressure. And in India, we have a lot of heart disease, heart attacks. And I don't think it's just in our genetics. It's we are very argumentative people who don't know how to slow down and have gentle conversations necessarily. Some of us, I mean, mainly I think urban people are affected by this. But anyway, all countries have people who behave in that way. And the research has shown, again, that people who get angry more often, they die younger and have more heart attacks. His Holiness Dalai Lama likes to quote that one. Modern research has shown that. But it should be no surprise, actually. Does it surprise you that people who get angry and shout at each other don't live so long and have heart attacks? Some might say, oh no, getting angry makes your blood go faster, so it's healthier for you. But it doesn't seem to work in that way, Anger has a particular negative effect on the whole organism, it seems, which again, they must have done a lot of research on. And it probably leads to release of adrenaline and cortisol, all sorts of negative feedback mechanisms which harm the body. And of course, lead to more and more anger. It becomes a trigger. It becomes a habitual pattern. So we react to things with anger, just like we react to certain things with blaming others, complaining about things, rather than generating, say, gratitude, which, from my experience, leads to a kind of pleasant state of mind, happy state, and for sure would be better for one's blood pressure and so forth. Yeah, thank you for that. Yasar, anything from your haven in South Delhi? Have you anything? As one of the youngest members here, maybe anything to say?
No, Kabirji, thank you. Just happy to listen to everyone contribute.
Okay, that's a thank you. Elaine, you're quiet today. Theek thak hain? Okay, good, good. Jugi, how are you? Good.
Yeah, I'm good, Kabir.
Good, good, good. And people at Tushita, sorry, I tend to get caught up in the virtual people and neglect the real people in front of me. Anyone here? Naveenji, Navita, what's your name, sir?
Shaurya. Shaurya.
Shaurya.
Yes.
Wow, where are you from?
I'm from Maharashtra.
Okay.
Ahmednagar, near Pune.
Ahmednagar, okay, yeah.
Can I ask a question? And
Yes,
sorry if this one
please.
is entirely relevant, but I was just wondering, like, how people like Shantideva or like great teachers in our time, especially, like, we see that they have this great insight into like common people and how their actions are and what their tendencies are, even though they are not engaged, maybe they don't have families, but like children.
So Nivita's asking how these people, these wise people, understand the common person who may be married, have children, when they themselves don't have. How do they understand how our minds work? Is
like
that your
past
question?
lives, or yeah, is it like past life experience? Or is it like
Is it past
insight?
life experience? Is it some kind of visionary experience, past life experience? Hey. Someone here care to also reply to this? Of course, I always have something to say, but would anyone else like to answer that? How can some high teacher who sits on a throne with a cap on their head understand the man on the street?
I think
That's an exaggerated way of putting
Yeah,
your
like
question.
Shantideva is a monk. Like,
Okay,
rather than-
Shantideva was a monk, but he was also a Mahasiddha. So part of his life he was a monk, part of it he wasn't. Are you researching something, Sagar
No, I
bhai?
read the same question. There is this answer.
There's an answer. In which book?
It's called Without and Within.
Bolo to kya?
No,
Sagar bhai has got a book in his hand from our library, and he's going to give us the definitive answer, huh? If he can find it in the contents. Tab tak aap log bhi sochiye, what do you think? Huh.
As monks lead such secluded lives, how
Yeah,
qualified
bowl, speak clearly in a measured way, with a smile on your face, loudly, because people online can't hear you otherwise. Are you on the
Now
right
he's
page?
pretending to lose the page.
Haji Sagar bhai, whose name means ocean. In Hindi, Sagar means ocean. Haan bhai, haan,
As
boliye.
monks lead such secluded lives, how qualified are they to give advice to lay people on their family and work problems?
Haan. Ye sawal hai. And the answer is there?
Yeah.
Shall I read it just to also it will be clearer for them? No, I'm not showing off, but all credit to you. This is Without and Within, questions and answers on the teachings of Theravada Buddhism. People from every social class and livelihood, old and young, male and female, go to visit senior monks. This is in Thailand, Burma, like that, those places. So people discuss their lives and problems with these monks in the same way that people in the West might talk to a priest or a therapist. As a result, such monks tend to have a good grasp of the kind of issues facing their lay disciples. A life devoted to understanding the human mind means that senior monks, particularly the meditation masters, have gained deep insights into the way that the mind works, how it creates suffering, and how it can be free of it. Through having looked profoundly at how their own minds work, these monks understand those of others. Although the situations provoking emotions may vary, the emotions themselves are universal. By addressing the thoughts, beliefs, desires, and fears that underlie various problems, monks can get to the root of the matter at hand without being hampered by a lack of personal experience of particular situations. And of course, this also applies to nuns who have been meditating, and many people go to nuns, obviously nowadays, especially in non-Theravadan countries. In Theravadan countries, nuns don't have such a good, don't have much status, unfortunately, still. But in Mahayana countries, Tibetan Buddhism, for example, nuns are well on the way to getting equality, I would say, almost. They study, they meditate, they can get even geshe degrees and so forth. So I think it's, you know, if one is intelligently watching one's own mind and watching others, one understands. Of course, if you're a monk or nun in a cave or have been in, you know, meditation retreat all your life, then maybe one could say they wouldn't have much idea. But even then they would have some idea because they're watching their own mind and they must realize that, well, my mind is not totally different from other people's minds. It's the mind. But yes, if they were isolated most of their life, then they would have difficulty, as some very traditional Tibetan teachers did have difficulty when they came to the West. They didn't understand Westerners at all, some of them, the more traditional geshes. People like Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, they were very alert and quickly learned. But even for them, some things were, you know, would have been difficult initially to understand the Western mind and Western problems. And there's some very humorous situations that happen. You know, I think Lama Yeshe gave a very, very humorous account of taking Lama Zopa Rinpoche for the first time to a Western supermarket. And he said, like, Rinpoche was just standing there with his mouth open. And he had very big eyes in those days, Rinpoche. He was very thin in those days, Lama Zopa, and very thin body and very big eyes. So it's like something almost out of a kind of science fiction movie, you know. And he was there kind of gazing at the supermarket and, you know, in amazement. I mean, here's a monk who's brought up in Solokhumbu area of northern Nepal, near Mount Everest, and trained in that region and in parts of Tibet. And he's taken to a Western supermarket. You can understand how he feels, you know. It's like, what is this? You know, even the cat and dog food is like more variety than anything you have on any shelf in a Himalayan shop, you know. So anyway, yeah, just like that, it may have been difficult for certain monastics to understand the Western mind, which is also more complicated in some ways than the Eastern mind, complicated in a sort of unwholesome way, too full of restlessness and so forth. By the way, in one of her talks, Tenzin Palmo, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo speaks very well about this. And I think a talk she gave on the nature of the mind. She speaks very interestingly about the difference between the Tibetan, at least the traditional Tibetan mind, and the Western mind. Very interesting to watch that one. They used to show it at Tushita Delhi, so it will be there somewhere. A video of her giving a speech, a talk at her nunnery, maybe, or at, anyway, somewhere in the hills. So yeah, I think, and also by interacting, as they say, so many people come to the teachers with their problems. So then they begin to understand, how crazy we are. And then they say, wow, this is what their own teachers and Shantideva are also talking about. So the understanding of the mind comes from a long time ago, because we all have. There was jealousy, there was ignorance, there was anger and attachment in Buddha's time and well before. So those are the primary emotions, and also joy and, all the others, kindness, compassion. So it would be, I don't think you should put those people too much on a kind of totally different level. And just because one is a teacher, even a geshe or a monk or a nun, doesn't mean that one doesn't have moments of tremendous aggression, anger, jealousy, all the rest of it. Just because someone wears different clothes doesn't mean they are holy, 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 What do you think? Does that make sense? And just because someone wears a t-shirt called, just do it, or decolonize, doesn't mean that they are a restless, confused slob of meat walking around on the planet. They could be a realized being. We can't say. All of us have access to Buddha nature. But the Buddha kind of was showing in his life that sometimes it's good to escape the palace where your father is trying to keep you trapped in a realm of artificial desire. It's good to escape and taste reality through often difficult search, but a necessary search. Yeah. So all of you who are living in gilded palaces, you may have to escape sometime. Jugi, I know, is not in a gilded palace. He's in a cold place up in Arunachal, but who knows? Anywhere can be our little prison, our little prison of comfort and habitual patterns. Anyone else? Anji, boliye.
The realized ones may not know why the other person is angry, may not understand the reason for the anger or attachment, but they know what anger, how destructive anger is, or how attachment is also destructive.
Yes, but it does help to know what the cause might be.
It does, yeah.
Say the cause is jealousy, then that person could also help that person, understand the situation of the other person that you feel jealous about, etc., etc. They could introduce a whole line of very useful insights based on knowing the cause. But of course, I agree with you that the raw energy of anger or attachment or jealousy is something that we all know, and it could be based on different causes and conditions. But to know the reason in a particular case can be useful, don't you think?
Yeah, of course, yes.
So through dialogue, through discussion, through confidential discussion with a student, then a teacher or someone in the role of teacher can find out a lot and help that person more, perhaps.
Absolutely. To be a teacher.
Just to give one example, you may have a very good friend, but because of jealousy and envy being what it is, you can feel very jealous of a friend. And, like parents can be jealous of their children. An old, mother can be jealous of her daughter because of many factors, the daughter being younger, more attractive, da, da, da. So then how to work with that kind of situation requires some specific insight, some specific advice, isn't it? The raw emotion may feel the same, but you would give slightly different advice based on what someone is feeling jealous about, Because the mother coming to someone and saying, look, I love my daughter, but I feel jealous of her, and I don't feel good about this. Then a sensitive counselor or listener or teacher has to know how to talk to that mother, right? And to make her feel okay about it in one way, but also give her insights as to how she, needn't feel that way. that her daughter also will get old and with lines in her face. Her daughter is living in difficult times, so you don't need to feel envious of your daughter. Your daughter's going to go through very difficult times. So the person could help the mother that way. And you feel jealous of someone who's more attractive than you, or you think more handsome, or whatever, or more money. So then there's many things one could explain to them, isn't it? Based on some Dharma insight.
Kabirji?
Just a sec, there's someone here, then I'll come back to you. Yes.
So
yeah.
I would like to add something to what Pradeepji has said.
Yeah, Pradeepji, yeah.
Just like how psychologist allows the client to discover the cause of the trouble himself or herself by asking the right set of questions. I always feel that a monk knows the process of inquiry, and it's via the process of inquiry is how a monk or a realized person can always give a chance to the person who's suffering the right set of questions to inquire himself or herself and reach to a conclusion themselves.
Okay. I will just say this in case they couldn't hear. So a friend here is saying that a skillful counselor or monk or whatever would encourage the person who has the problem to inquire and ask questions and to discover for themselves the answers, rather than, you're saying, rather than just giving them a formula, or, because often we go to someone thinking they know the answer. I'm hopeless, they know the answer, they are wise, they will teach me, who's an ignorant person. But actually we all have some, I guess you're implying, we all have intelligence. And if we are given the right cues and questions, we can begin to answer our own questions, right? This is what you're saying. That's what a good psychologist would do. And that is healthier in that sense. So it doesn't make us over dependent on the guru, the psychologist, psychiatrist, and and it also makes us lazy that we don't inquire ourselves. This is what you're saying? Thank you. Yeah, that is there, I'm sure. Yes. Of course, sometimes it is difficult for the person and they just need the reassurance and to meet with people. I mean, that's what monks and nuns are for, really, or guardians or people we trust. That's what they're for, whether they're an elder brother, sister, guide of any kind, or a monk or nun. We go to them because just talking to them gives us some respite, some confidence, some feeling that we are being listened to, because many people don't have other people in their lives who listen to them, right? Have you had that experience, that people are not listening to you? They have no time for you. As soon as their phone rings, they're very interested in their mobile phone, and they've forgotten there's a real human being in front of them, and that maybe the real human being at the end of the mobile phone can wait a moment, Anyway, so yeah, that is there.
And just to add to just what
Yeah.
you said right now,
Right.
even when we convey our problem to anyone, a nun or a psychologist, in so many philosophers have said that once you're able to put any sort of a language to a problem, just what Wittgenstein also says, the German philosopher, as soon as you're able to define a problem,
Yes.
you've done half the work.
Okay.
As it was just cluttered in your head, and whatever language you are able to use, summarize that problem and present it. You've gone halfway. So,
Okay.
So in some sense, even while you're conveying the problem, you've done half the work yourself.
Okay, good. So it's being said that if we can clearly define our problem or what is conflicting us in words, in language, in clear language, we can define our problem, then that is half the battle. But often we are so confused, we cannot really define our situation. And often, actually, as someone who shares the Dharma with people, I often get questions from people in courses and here at Tushita, very confused questions. People actually aren't sure really what they're asking. Sometimes people are very confused. So as you're saying, to have clarity about the question can really help, because then you have a very good idea of what it is actually that needs working with. Sometimes we're not clear and we need to think it through more and then find the right language for it. Because often I find nowadays people don't have the language, either in their native language or in English, to really, and I'm not saying language can totally define something all the time, it can't. But I find people can be pretty not very good with language. We don't have enough vocabulary. Because everyone is, again, one of my prejudices, what I'm about to say, but everyone is trying to get onto BCom courses and other things like that. We have lost our ability to use language properly. Look at how people send messages, WhatsApp messages and others. We're in such a, sorry, I was about to use a 4-letter word, not the really bad one, but another one. We're in such a hurry to send messages that we can't bother to write a whole word. It's kind of trendy to use all these shorthand things, the for FOR, and all of that stuff. It's considered very, very modern, very trendy to do that. I feel like not answering messages like that. I have a friend who doesn't answer messages like that. He doesn't answer people who write to him in shorthand. And I say, good for him. Everyone should take time to have a basic vocabulary which they can write properly. But as you say, I'm prejudiced. I'm a dinosaur from the 20th century. So,
Kabirji,
Hanji, boliye.
I think if you have a clarity of what your problem is,
Yes.
you probably will also realize what the solution is.
Why do you say that?
Because 80% of the times if I come with a problem, because I'm not sure, I have not diagnosed the problem properly. So I don't even know I know that it is troubling me, but I don't know why it is troubling me. So I don't have clarity of the problem.
So you're saying
if I'm very clear about the problem, it will be easier for me to solve that problem. Okay. So the guru, the teacher, the psychiatrist makes me understand from whatever confusion I come with, makes me understand, makes it clear why my problem is, and the solution automatically flows from it.
Okay, so let me give you a problem and you tell me how I might solve it. Say I work in an office or in a Dharma center, let's say, and then somebody who works with me really makes me upset again and again due to how they work, okay, or how they talk to me, okay. They really upset me, and I feel they are, not being respectful, or they are not being responsible, or whatever. It upsets me. And I know my problem very clearly. This is my problem. I'm upset because of these issues. So how do I deal with that? I have told the problem, and this is not happening in real life, by the way. This is not happening in Tushita. Don't worry. This is a hypothetical question, but it has happened in other centers where I've worked. So then how do I deal with that? According to
from a very Buddhist perspective,
whatever,
getting upset, or from a normal perspective, you get
intelligent.
Getting upset is not going to solve the problem. Getting upset is going to complicate the problem more, because once you are upset, you tend to exaggerate a lot of things. You tend not to see a wholesome picture, a clearer picture. So the first thing I think should be told to that person, don't get upset, because they also must be getting upset at what you do. Without getting upset, try to find out a better solution will come out of it without getting upset or without getting angry. Okay, you are disturbed, but control that, and then look at it afresh.
How do you
So
control?
if it needs a firm handling, be firm. Don't like dilly-dally. If it needs a firm handling, handle it firmly. If you think it can be solved with some skillful ways, do that. But getting upset is not going to solve that problem.
What if the person says, I know that getting upset is not helping me. That's why I'm coming to you to ask for advice. So how do I stop being upset, Pradeepji? Oh, hold on. There's an insistent person here. How do I stop being upset?
Kabirji, I think this I feel is a very prevalent parenting issue where you tell a child, oh, don't be sad, or don't be angry.
Good. So he's saying this is a prevalent parental problem. For example, a parent telling your child, don't be upset, don't be sad.
Right. So it often happens that a parent is dismissive of the child's feeling or emotion. I feel that better ways come out when the parent gives more space for that child to really
Let me say. Yeah. So it can feel dismissive to just say to the child, don't be sad, don't be this, don't be angry, whatever. So it makes sense to give more space to the child.
And it's only when you give more space, when the child is able to put on a label, I feel angry. So the subconscious part of the brain then tries to find out, okay, what is the root source of the anger? And then the parent has to ask, what was your set of expectations that you carried? And then why are you carrying that set of expectations? And so we almost always end up realizing that this insecurity stems from some sense of comparison.
Some kind of?
Some sense of comparison. The expectation, and then this prevalent insecurity comes from a sense of comparison, and then the parent has to ensure that it is fine for you to feel angry or sad, but we do not have to compare, and this sense of happiness need not stem from comparison. And I think
comparison with the ideal situation or with another person?
With like if someone, whatever set of expectation, basis, standards, prejudice, bias you have set inherently.
This is quite complicated. It would depend also on the age of the child. Some children would be much more capable of reflection and working on it. I mean, you have to deal with it differently with a 3-year-old or a 6 or a 10-year-old, isn't it? Anyway, these are complicated things, but at least we've got some discussion going on. And this is a very important one, actually, because in Buddhism, we do say if you're feeling sad or angry, then there are various ways of working with that. If you have a destructive anger, you may work with that one way. If you are feeling sad because of what you see in the world, or a kind of sadness that you can't put your finger on, then it might be worthwhile to stay with that sadness, because that sadness is not something that is harming anyone. And it's not necessarily harming you if it's a certain kind of sadness. So it doesn't have to be dealt with in that emergency fashion to, and you don't have to rush to a psychiatrist saying, I'm feeling sad. Sadness can be a very positive emotion, a very healthy response to life and the suffering of others, for example. So it would depend on the emotion, it would depend on the situation, it would depend, I think, on how much it is disturbing the person who is experiencing it, etc., etc. But for sure, I think this shows up something that is so necessary, isn't it? And that many books and Dharma courses are concerned with, which is working with what we might call, working with emotions, especially working with disturbing emotions. But it all comes back, doesn't it, to that sense of clarity and the ability to self-reflect, which is not being taught in modern education. And that's the danger, and why a lot of initiatives nowadays are trying to bring that back, to be a reflective person, to understand one's own feelings and emotions and work with them and not be afraid of them and so forth. Because most adults, let's face it, have not been taught this way. Most adults can't cope with their problematic emotions. They either don't talk about them, they repress them, or they act them out, or whatever. And this is very detrimental also for children in those families, because then they also become mistrustful of their own emotions. They don't know how to deal with them. So yeah, we need a lot of more intelligence. And just reading Shantideva won't help. We have to really reflect and meditate on it. And often we need discussion with people who are very skilled at working with their emotions and working in groups with people, working with children. But the key seems to be to bring it into education, doesn't it? With many of these things early on in life. Yes.
To the question, like you said, like if I am feeling upset about someone not doing a particular thing, and because of that we are getting upset. I've read this same question in a book which a German psychologist have written. So always not getting onto us, like we are feeling upset and we want to be happy. So we are trying to make ourselves happy, but it's not always in our hand. So we have to sometimes tell the infant person to not do that thing in a polite way or in a mature way. Like if you feel your this word makes me upset, and the environment around, the vibe around that upset. So telling him or her in a polite way, in a matured way, to not do that thing.
Yeah.
So he or she will also understand.
Yes, yes.
This is getting not good. So he or she may change his way or her way to do that, and that may create a good and positive,
a better atmosphere. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes our friend is saying we have to tell the person who is misbehaving or doing something to upset us, and which may be poisoning the whole atmosphere in a particular situation. We have to tell them that they're not behaving properly. They should stop behaving that way. It's not as though we have to do all the work, in the sense that everything is just my problem and I have to work with it psychologically within my own mind. That, of course, Buddhism says our own mind is the main thing. That doesn't mean we allow everyone to do whatever they want to do, because that would be ridiculous. Then we would allow people to, kill and steal and rape and do what they want. And we would say, oh, well, it's just, about me and my mind and how I respond. That would be ridiculous. If people are harming and behaving in ways which are obviously not beneficial, and we have the capacity and the situation is correct, seems to be allowing it, then we should tell people. We should restrain people if we can, just like a mother or father would restrain their child who is attacking their brother or sister on the dining table with a knife or fork. We have to stop them. We can't, say, oh, well, we can't psychologize it at that point. We have to stop people behaving like lunatics, or, when they are really behaving badly. We have to tell them, especially in a close relationship between people, let's say. People have to be clear with each other. Look, what you're saying or doing is disturbing me, is disturbing other people, is, disturbing, whatever. Disturbing the child, disturbing the neighbors. You can't behave like this, Can we discuss it? I mean, there are many ways depending on who the other person is. But it again brings to the fore this important factor that we have lost the art of proper communication. By and large, we've lost the art of real dialogue. And dialogue here doesn't just mean talking to each other. It means examining one's own prejudices, one's own lack of ability to really listen to the other person patiently, to talk to people always full of one's own conditioning and expectation or what we think is right, but be prepared to learn from the other person. All these things are in very short supply nowadays. We don't know the art of dialogue. I certainly don't yet, trying to learn more, but real dialogue, which is open to change, open to what the other person is really trying to say, this is very rare because we're in such a hurry. you know, time, we don't have time, we don't have the patience. So this is very necessary. And it seems to be reflection and meditation in Buddhism seems to be also a process, isn't it? Dialogue with oneself. A dialogue with oneself. I think that's what analytical meditation is in many ways, a proper, patient dialogue with oneself. Because there are competing thoughts and in our own mind, we have to work with them. Given what the Dharma says, we have to then reflect on that. And we certainly have opposing tendencies, which we need to examine. Yeah. And of course, if we think we are more educated or intelligent or sophisticated than another person that we're talking to, that can be a very big hindrance, because there's always in the back of the mind this thought that I know better. I know better than the other person. So they should listen to me, you know. And I'll pretend to listen to them, but I'm not really listening because I'm preparing my next brilliant answer, which is going to make them feel, oh yes, this guy is so intelligent. He knows the answer. That happens. You know, we have a lot of degrees and whatever, certain background, we think, you know, because I know I've heard the words, you know, anti-establishmentarian or Shostakovich, then I think I'm more intelligent than a villager who's never heard of Mozart. So then I think, oh, I must be more intelligent. I must know better than them. Whereas often their earthy wisdom is far more productive and useful than my own sophistication. What do you think? That's also a problem. Sorry, there are some things in the chat I've neglected. Oh, this must be, from Apurva, my limited POV, that's a new one, point of view, I guess. POV, that's good. Western psychology's approach towards letting the clients and patients arrive at their own solutions work for a certain ethos. But from a Buddhist point of view, that may not always be required because there is no self-grasping. I don't need to find all solutions myself because I devote myself to the three jewels, which will eventually spark the wisdom that already exists within me. It's not like we put ourselves or the guru higher than anything. I am the guru and the guru is me. It's all empty. Goodness me. Wow. Well, I need.
Sorry, this may be a bit of a brain freezing moment.
I need chocolate to fire my neurons. Sorry, Apurva.
I just read it back again and I realized it wasn't a very coherent thought. But I mean, I was just thinking about this when it was being discussed. So I just thought I'd put it out there. Just the comparisons between the Western and Eastern psychologies.
So what do you think is the main thing? What for you is Eastern psychology?
I mean, I think, psychology, to me, Buddhism itself is psychology. Like, that's how I understand it. It is the study of the mind, essentially. And what a Western psychologists would be doing is also helping the mind of patients. So, I mean, in that sense, like somebody at the center said that, nuns or monks and psychologists are doing a similar thing in terms of, finding the line of inquiry. So in that sense, it's very accurate. But in certain techniques, I feel like there is a difference because of the fact that the patient doesn't need to necessarily be given all the power to decide, like I mean, maybe in a certain situation, if I arrive at my own conclusion, I would probably analyze it better, or, it would be more effective if I came at my own solution rather than somebody telling me or, somebody teaching me about another solution. But in the Eastern psychology point of view, I feel like that isn't quite required because of the fact that the foundational teaching is of no self and emptiness. And because of the no self teaching, there isn't any requirement for me to arrive at my own solution, essentially, because the Buddha already
That's a
in
bit
some way
absolute.
found something.
I would have to interrupt you and disagree, because we start where
Yes.
we are. We start where we are, which is with an ego, with a sense of self, sense of identity, and we need it to some extent, especially in the beginning. If we have a very fractured or fragile sense of who we are, it can be devastating then to be told that actually we don't exist the way we think we exist, because we already feel very fragile and don't have any kind of positive self-esteem, many people. So in the beginning, it can help to have a kind of therapist or counselor who helps build up a good sense of oneself. And then later can come the deconstruction. We can't deconstruct before we have any kind of structure in the first place, which feels safe and comfortable. That would be too traumatic for many people to go straight into this no self and so forth, because we're so. Of course, it could work for some people who have the instinct of that from previous lives. They might feel a great sense of relief at hearing the teachings on emptiness. But I think it depends very much on the nature of the person and the particular whatever trauma or hurt or lack of, self-esteem that they are harboring. And it would take a very skillful therapist to know exactly how to approach different kinds of patients, which is why I guess it's quite rare to find a really very, very good therapist, because they have to be so skillful and know exactly how to approach different patients, based on talking to them and, really listening to them and so forth. So yes, in one way, there is no self to protect, no inherently existing self to protect or to defend. But what does that really mean? We don't know what emptiness is right now. We haven't experienced it. And if we did, we might.
It's only conceptual.
Yeah, and it's said that people who actually have an inkling of emptiness, it can terrify them initially. It can terrify them. Sorry, I'm secretly eating Toblerone while listening to you, or about to.
Please do.
Anyway, yeah, like that. So one has to be very careful. Are you a psychologist? What's your job?
No, I'm not a psychologist. I'm a filmmaker, but I'm interested in all kinds of psychology.
Well, this is a very fertile field for films and documentaries. Of course, all great filmmaking is basically about human interaction, isn't it? And human problems, needs, challenges, and so forth. A lot of great filmmaking is about that. So yeah, also documentaries, and a lot of work has already been done on writing on East-West psychotherapy, the similarities and the differences. What it seems to come down to is a very attentive and kind approach from the therapist, so-called. Next time I'm in class, I'll try and remember to bring something which I read once before, I think I read it once before. A short description of Carl Gustav Jung, the great Swiss psychotherapist, in session with a woman who had come to him with certain symptoms, where she felt all the time that there was all this blood, that she was kind of dripping blood and that blood was coming out of her and all, that kind of thing. She was having quite severe kind of symptoms, not actual blood, but she was thinking that was happening. It was like kind of psychosomatic situation. And I won't give you the whole story, that would be a spoiler, but I will bring that text very beautifully in 2 pages that describes how Jung helped her completely, get rid of her symptoms without medication, So, and it wasn't magic, but you could say it's the magic of the mind and the magic of someone who was a master of their art in many ways and who knew how to listen. This seems to be very important, the right way of listening to people, which an art we have lost, because we're always projecting our own stuff, garbage onto the situation. Anyway, I'll try to remember to bring that book, which has this short description of this very
Thank
great
you.
man. But by the way, Jung came to India and people criticized him for never going to visit Ramakrishna, Raman Maharishi, who was still alive at that time. And Jung was really, he was from Switzerland, right? So they don't just have good chocolate, they have very clean environment. And apparently he came to India in, I think, the 50s, and he was totally kind of, I would say, LBW because of the dirt in India. He couldn't handle noise and dirt and the number of people. Yeah, he just wasn't ready for that. You know, he was a very wise and man, but he wasn't ready for India in that sense. So I think he didn't travel as much as he could have. And he didn't go to visit Raman Maharishi. I think it's Raman Maharishi he didn't visit. Ramakrishna? When did Ramakrishna die, by the way? Ramakrishna.
Ramakrishna Paramahansa, he must.
Ramakrishna Paramahansa died in 19th century.
19th?
Century.
Okay, so it was Raman Maharishi. Everyone had been saying to him afterwards, why didn't you go to Raman Maharishi?
In the book, in his autobiography, which I borrowed from you only,
yes,
Jung describes his experiences in India, and he says the only philosophy and the place where he realized that there is something here being offered which is much larger, spiritual, and this thing is the Buddhist, this thing. Otherwise, in his book, he writes that all other religion things which he heard and interacted with, he felt very disappointed. He's used very strong language to say that it's rubbish.
Partly because of, I think, the squalor and the noise.
No, but when he went to the Buddhist monasteries, and when he obviously must have done a lot of study of Hindu scriptures and of Buddhism. He compares and says that it's Buddhism only which has a lot to offer.
Maybe because the Buddhist places were quieter and more controlled, and the Hindu temples were full of, you know, cows and dirt and flowers and prasad and shouting pandits and all, you know, which is, it's more a street religion in many ways, Hinduism. One of the reasons they say Buddhism declined in India in the past is because it was too much controlled in just the monasteries and a few places, and they weren't out there with the people. You know, the Buddhist monks and all weren't out there enough with the people. And so when the monasteries were destroyed and the universities and Nalanda and all, then Buddhism was finished because it had never penetrated into the marketplace like
there's too much of oppression also by during Shankara's period. In fact,
yes.
There was too much of oppression on Hinduism by Hindu, on Buddhism by Hinduism, by.
ठीक है, वो छोड़िए, but put yourself in the footsteps of Carl Gustav Jung. There you are, a very respectable Swiss person who has lived in Switzerland all their life. When you arrive in India, तो क्या सोचेंगे आप? सोचेंगे एक तरह से पागल खाना में आ गए. And then you find a nice quiet Buddhist vihara. You'll think, oh yeah, these Buddhists are much more, I like Buddhism better than Hindu. I'm joking partly, but you could see from the eyes of a Swiss person who's used to, and he lived in a very quiet, beautiful house that he'd had built for himself, I think on the lake, beside Lake Geneva, ya jahan bhi tha, or Lake Zurich. And you can imagine coming to India, how chaotic it must have been for him. Anyway, I'm glad you're reading. You're reading Memories, Dreams, Reflections. That one.
Yeah, the book you had. His and he wrote it when he was 80, I think 80, or I think
maybe yes. Yeah, wonderful book.
Yeah, it's
wonderful. And his book, Man and His Symbols, that should very required reading for people who want to understand at least 20th century psychiatry and psychotherapy. He was a very interesting, very, very amazing man. Yeah, he offered a lot to, I think, for humans to understand, especially the shadow and shadow projection and all those things. Jung is very good. Very, very good.
Wounded healer. Jung also termed the wounded.
Yeah. The wounded healer, yeah. What is this? Someone is coming towards me with an offering. So today, folks, you see, the faults of being online only, you don't get to eat the kalakand made by Sagar's sister, although it's beginning to look and feel a bit like cement, but it will be very tasty cement. It's certainly not the kind of kalakand I'm used to. And then we have Toblerone, as yet uneaten. Look at my restraint I'm showing. Haven't eaten it yet. So you see, if you come to Tushita, you get more than just dharma. You get prasad, you get many things. And we don't have this every day. Today is a lucky day. Haji,
Ajirji wants to say something, but he's not.
Who?
Ajirji.
Ajirji? He wants to say something? How do you know?
Because his the green thing used on his screen, on his.
Yeah, I can't see anything.
A couple of times like that. That means that.
Oh, sorry, Ajirji. Boliye. Sorry, I didn't allow you earlier. I'm very sorry. Bataiye. Meanwhile, I can eat some prasad. We offered it to Lord Buddha, na? So, prasad.
I think my internet is slightly fluctuating. I think this is the original question which was raised. How does the monk know the ordinary mind? Yeah, I think I really wanted to say that the monks, particularly when we say the monks, it doesn't necessarily mean that the people who are in the putting on the robe, but the monk who are really devoting for the studies and understanding the human mind. I think they understand more about the ordinary mind than probably the ordinary mind understand himself. That is why I think persons like Acharya Atisha said that if we want to really help the others, it's very essential that the mind should be brought to the level of the clairvoyance at least, so that he knows what the state of the mind of the other person is, and he can offer the genuine solution. So I think that's what I really wanted to say, that if the person is sitting in the cave and doing the meditation in a very serious way, it doesn't mean that he is not knowing how does the human mind work, or how does the mind of the ordinary being functions. That is one. And secondly, I wanted to share very recent experience. This is hardly about 10 days back. There's a friend of mine who was a very important person in Arunachal. He was the minister. He passed away. And the time and the place and other details were sent from Arunachal, that is from Tawang to Dharamshala to the Buddhist astrology, who study the astrology, astrophysics, which is a 5-year study. And from Dharamshala, he told that his mind is newly.
Can you turn off your video to save the bandwidth? We can't hear you properly now.
Yeah. Okay.
Please turn off your video.
Yeah.
Bataiye.
Okay. Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So this information was sent to Dharamshala, and this person told that his mind is a bit attached to the newly acquired trousers. Hardly about a week back, he came to Delhi and he purchased 2 trousers. Okay. And this person from Dharamshala also told that these trousers are in a black bag somewhere in the corner of the room. And the family found that, yes, I think these trousers are there. And the second is that it was also told that there is something which smells, and it seemed that his mind is also a bit attached to that. So they thought that it could be liquor. They searched and then there was no liquor. His wife was asked, she said that yes, this time when he went to Delhi, he purchased probably for the first time the perfume bottle. So this information has gone from Dharamshala to a land which is in Tawang. So it may sound very strange, but I think if they can see that, they would be able to know what is the mind of the people. So I think what I really wanted to put forth was that the monks at the certain level know my mind more than what I really.
Yes, I agree. I've had that kind of experience with my teacher who knew exactly what I'd been doing and thinking, although he was 1,000 or 10,000 miles away at that time or whatever, but he knew exactly something which nobody else knew and could have known unless they had clairvoyance. So this is actually, as you know, mentioned in the teachings, that one of the benefits of developing shamatha and beyond is that one can develop clairvoyance, which then, of course, if one is a well-motivated person, can be used to help people. Of course, if one is not well-motivated, one could use it to harm others or make a lot of money and so forth. But for the bodhisattvas to have clairvoyance is very important. I agree. Then they know. Of course, they also know at a certain level your past lives, what may be the future. So they can give a lot of amazing advice based on that kind of knowledge. Yeah. So it's good if we have clairvoyance, but until we get clairvoyance, we have to base our analysis on observation, intelligence, isn't it? Watching our own minds and so forth. Maybe reading certain books. Yeah. Thank you, Ajirji. Excuse me eating Toblerone while I was listening. My cook is not here at the moment. My aunt is away in Himachal.
No.
This is my dinner.
I was trying to make a very simple.
Whoop. Now you sound like a sitar. Ajirji, you sound like a sitar. Try again.
Do you hear me now? No, it's
not so good.
Okay, so
I think you had a good shot. We got a good lesson from you. What else? Jagmohanji, are you okay? Jagmohanji is
because I have to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Jagmohanji. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.
Isar, are you happy still to watch, or you want to say something?
Happy to
Amita is there. Dish is there. Sorry, Isar. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Nain, do you have anything you'd like to contribute?
No, thank you, Kabirji. I think it was a great session. I mean, going through the text, but I think just the discussions help as well. I mean, just hearing everyone else, I think we get quite a bit from that.
There's been some research which says that a lot of people get more help from discussion than anything else. Thanks a lot. Thank you, both of you. Yeah, 2 people are leaving. Yeah, discussion can help. I'm reading something at the moment by David Bohm, who is a very extraordinary physicist who had discussions with Krishnamurti, and whom Dalai Lama ji called one of his main science gurus almost. So he's written a lot on dialogue, and I'm beginning to really go into that book, and it's extraordinary, the depth to which this person has explored the field of authentic dialogue and obviously put it into practice. So I'm learning a great deal at the moment. Because otherwise, for me, dialogue is just kind of people with an open mind and listening, talking to each other. But that's you know, it goes much deeper than that. One can really go very deeply into what real dialogue is. And in that sense, it's perfectly suited to what we might call Eastern philosophy or Buddhist philosophy, because it's largely to do, isn't it, a lot of these things with negating or putting one's putting me in the background and allowing something else to flow when the I doesn't get in the way. Because all the time the me is getting in the way, right? Have you had that experience?
Mm-hmm.
We've been supposed to be having that since beginningless time. That's our experience, the me getting in the way. So then we'd never have happiness because the I is always creating the problem.
Yeah.
I want, I don't want, blah, 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 blah. Goes on and on. It's terrifying and exhausting, right? Namita, are you still there? Namita is helping now as a volunteer here. She's been a little sick.
Yes,
Namita,
Kabir.
are you okay?
Yeah, I'm better now. Thank you.
Are you enjoying our wise discussion?
Very much. Food for
Good.
thought.
Food for thought, yes. We'll save some Toblerone for you, maybe. Is it all finished? Oh, there's some Toblerone for you from the United States.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Blessed
I just
by,
want
the United
my
States.
downstairs to
Later,
everyone.
maybe. Yeah, later.
Yeah, thank you.
Rajesh ji, are you still there? You are in Gurgaon still? Rajesh bhai? No, Rajesh ji does a lot of practice, purification practice.
Yes.
Ah.
Yes, Kabir ji, namaste.
And he makes some of the best parathas I've ever tasted. He's a really good cook.
I'm still in Gurgaon.
Aaj paratha banaye?
Not today.
अच्छा. जब
गुरुजी आ रहे हैं क्या कबीर जी?
अजी?
नमाज मेरे को लग रहा है कि नमाज परम पचे गुरुजी दिल्ली आ सकते हैं शायद. क्या है पता नहीं.
आएंगे शायद, लेकिन टाइम पता नहीं है, और वो 1 या 2 रोज के लिए आएंगे और टीचिंग नहीं देंगे. वो खाली
थोड़ा बहुत ऑफरिंग तो कर सकेंगे क्या?
पता नहीं, अभी कुछ वो सूचना नहीं मिला रेणुका जी से. हाँ, वो अभी थोड़ा व्यस्त हैं दूसरे चीजों में, और हो सकता है हम लोग भी उतना तैयार नहीं हैं. पता नहीं, प्रोग्राम थोड़ा ऐसा है उनका. अभी पता नहीं एग्जैक्टली कब आ रहे हैं. पहले उनको अक्टूबर में आना था, अब कह रहे हैं 6 नवंबर को आएंगे, लेकिन कुछ स्पष्ट नहीं है.
चलो, थैंक यू.
आएंगे तो बता देंगे.
ठीक है, थैंक यू.
ये भी निश्चित नहीं है कि हम लोग मिल सकेंगे.
ये भी सी ऑफ तो कर सकते हैं, रिसीव और सी ऑफ तो कर सकते हैं. दूर से तो देख सकते हैं ना गुरुजी को.
वो दूरदर्शन से देख सकते हैं, लेकिन पता नहीं उनके सामने जाके पता नहीं. वो तो बट विल ट्राई. या तो एयरपोर्ट जाना पड़ेगा मिलने, ये भी हो सकता है, देखते हैं.
ठीक है, थैंक यू.
थैंक यू राजेश जी.
थैंक यू.
So we can stop now, or we can go on. I don't mind, but people may have things to do. Turkish friend has left. Probably people have hard to take off. It's been 2 hours, so that's more than twice the length of a psychological consultation. For free, look at that.
I was gonna say for free.
मुफ्त में मिल रहा है. एक स्टारबक्स में जाके कॉफी खरीदते हैं आप लोग, 300-400 रुपए खर्च करते हैं. और तुषिता को क्या मिला इससे? खाली पुण्य मिला हम लोगों को. अच्छी बात है. It's very good for Tushita, but walls need painting and restoring. So anyone who wants to contribute online, of course, always welcome. Some of you have already done so. So many thanks to those of you who shall be anonymous. I won't mention the names, but some people here have been very generous. So thank you. Because we depend on others, totally on students actually. We have two or three main sponsors. Due to them that Tushita survives. Also our landlady gives us this place at a very low rent. So we're very fortunate. This is good for health, no? I hope so. It's quite heavy, no? But we had a great meal the other day. Sorry, I'm talking to the real people. Sorry. I don't know whether you guys really exist the way you appear. Okay, I think we've run out of brilliant things to say and discuss. There's plenty to think about. Those of you who want to revise, look at the next few verses. We'll look at them tomorrow. Tomorrow is being Tuesday. Tomorrow morning, we'll continue with the shamatha and the loving kindness practice. We started today at 8 a.m. Those who have time tomorrow morning, feel free. I'll send the posting. So let's dedicate those of us who are here for the happiness and welfare of all beings. All of us to have uninterrupted contact with the Dharma and with authentic teachers like His Holiness and Geshe-la and so forth. And some verses from Shantideva. Just as they intended, may the Bodhisattvas fulfill the welfare of the world, and may all sentient beings receive whatever the Buddhas have intended for them. May I live and be sustained by simple common foods, and in all my lives may I find the ideal solitude for practicing Dharma. For as long as space endures and for as long as living beings remain, until then may I too remain, to dispel the misery of the world. May the teachings, which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy, be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manju Ghosh, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. Please pray for all our great teachers and all their Dharma wishes for us to be fulfilled. May Tushita become more and more beneficial for others through teaching, programs, and so forth. And may all of us have time and inclination to engage in listening, reflecting, and meditating on the Dharma, especially at the moment on Shantideva's great work. Thank you all very much for your patience. Good night. Keep well, and see some of you tomorrow.